Welcome back, guys, to another video brought to you by your one and only literary pharaoh. I just wanted to talk to you guys about the scamish nature of our reality. It's getting to the point that whenever I hear a commercial, I automatically know that it's a scam. You say, what are you talking about, literary pharaoh? Well, in a capitalistic society that we live in, especially that one that's industry based, is based on industry and based on commerce, the main objective is for the seller to sell you a product. You are the consumer. When I say you, I'm talking about us. As a consensus, we are the consumer. So situations are created where it creates a supply and demand, because if there's a deficit in a particular area in life, there's always a natural proclivity from the human perspective to find or seek a remedy for that deficit. So whether it's cleaning products, or whether it's to remedy your health, whether it's, I don't know, to insert convenience in a very fast-paced moving life where people are working, driving in traffic, having to run errands, whatever it is that you're going through in life that is a deficit, meaning that it's causing stress or something could be done to make the situation a little bit easier, then there's a product out there that's sold to you. The unfortunate thing about this is that it's all a huge scam in a sense. Number one, of course, the first level of the scam is that there are built-in mechanisms and built-in scenarios designed intentionally by the system to induce the deficits, to induce the stress, to induce the inconvenience, to make us as the consumers come to seek a remedy or a rectifying agent to counter those things that I mentioned previously. So, when you talk about the health industry, sicknesses are induced by man. You say, what do you mean, literary pharaoh? Well, when I say induced by man, it means that it's caused by man. It's anthropogenic. Disease, which is dis-ease of your human biome, of your chemical status, because if you're imbalanced, then you're not at ease. That's where you get the term dis-ease from. And all these things that happen to us is not natural. We've actually grown up in a society where we believe that illnesses are normal and illnesses are not normal. When you have the food industry, which their main, I hear people say this a lot, and I think that we need to start to look a little bit deeper and see the system for the evil essence that it upholds, that the evil essence that it possesses. The industries, whether it's the food industry, the drug industry, whatever industry that it is, it's not all about money. Yeah, money is the byproduct. Money is the symptomatic result of the scam. The true evil is the destruction of humanity. And I know you guys are going to look at me and say, oh, there's this guy go. He has his, he's a conspiracy theorist. He's thinking too deep. But I think that we don't think deep enough. And I think that we are afraid to go to the extremes, because going to the extremes takes you down a rabbit hole to a degree, and it takes you to a dark place that most people are not willing to enter. The food industry is not made for money. The food industry is made to kill you and make you sick. You say, how can you say that, literary pharaoh? Well, look at the end game. Look at the end product. Look at America as a whole. Look at America as a society, how sick we are. Look at America, how many people have heart problems, diabetes, hypertension, inflammation, cancer. I could go on and on. I mean, these things are caused by our culture, and culture is not devoid of the foods that you eat, because that's part of your culture, what you eat, because eating is an emotional act. And a lot of the times when people are eating foods, it's not because obviously you're hungry, but a lot of the times you seek a particular food based on your emotion. A lot of people who are stressed, they end up seeking sugar because they're trying to increase dopamine. because the high cortisol levels in their body is telling them, hey, go seek something to give you a good feeling, to insert some sort of artificial oxytocin to combat the cortisol. So in that exchange, you end up seeking artificial means that are far from natural, that are processed foods, processed sugars. You seek that, you get the temporary fix that you need and the temporary dopamine, but the long-term effects are highly devastating, more impactful than the short temporary fix that you just received. In other words, it's not worth it, you know. So in all, the industries are made to kill you. Now, when I say kill you, it's not a deliberate kill. The kill shots were not a deliberate kill. The inoculation programs are not a deliberate kill. They're not trying to kill you instantly. It's a principle that's called death by 1,000 cuts. Okay? You're killing people slowly. But it's beneficial to the system because we're all worker bees. We're all slaves to the higher powers. Who are the higher powers, you may ask? The higher powers are not Trump. Those are puppets. Those are workers too. If you know the name of a person, if you know the name of these people, they're not the leaders. The true government, the true leaders are in the shadows. You don't see them. They're in the shadows. They're hidden. What we have in terms of what we can actually conceptualize in the abstract, those things are nothing but the proxy or the front or the fake or the mask that's worn to conceal the true enemies. The true enemies are foreign. When I say foreign, I don't mean from another country. I mean foreign, that they're not from this planet. Listen to people like Billy Carson. There are many people on the internet that are talking about this. It's just not me. And I've always been on this years ago, even before I found out about Billy Carson. If you don't know who he is, look up on YouTube. He's everywhere. There's an extraterrestrial force at play. And please do not turn this video off because you hear the word extraterrestrial. Let it sink in. Marinate on what I'm telling you for a second. And don't dismiss me and say, oh, it's all about God. Well, who the fuck do you think God is? God is an extraterrestrial. Do you see God walking around on planet Earth? If God has the power outside of our reality to create reality, according to the Bible believers, according to your narratives that you believe in, the dogmatic narratives that you guys imbibe on, if that's true, then it means that God did not originate from this planet. He's extraterrene. The terrain means land. I've said this numerous times on videos, and people still don't understand that. Terrain, terrestrial. Terrain means land. When you extra means outside. Exo, X. You have internal, you have external. External means outside, internal means inside. So God is not indigenous to Earth. God is not, God's natural placement or origin is not from planet Earth. So this being that you guys believe in and worship blindly, according to your dogmatic narrative that you guys believe in, you guys believe that it's a word written by God, so that we're gonna go with that. If that is true, then the God you worship is an extraterrestrial. The God you worship is an alien. So much so that he says it himself. He says that my kingdom is not of this world. So if your kingdom is not of this world, that means your kingdom is from another world. If you're from another world, you are a extraterrestrial. You are an alien that came into this world. I.e., maybe you came from another dimension. Maybe you came from another planetary system. Maybe you came from another star system. The point that I'm making is this. The reason why I'm bringing up that God reference is because many people, especially many religious people, they tend to push people away that are talking about extraterrestrial beings or aliens. Or the human experience being highly influenced by extraterrestrial forces that we can't see, that we can't notice in this dense reality that we live in. They tend to push it off because they believe, oh, God is in control of everything. Well, let's talk about the nature of a God. Let's talk about the essence and the definition of what extraterrestrial actually means. Let's talk about what alien, by definition, actually means. Even on planet Earth, we call people who leave their country and come to another country, we call them, especially if they come in illegally, we call them illegal aliens because you're coming from another land. When we're talking about a much more macro concept in terms of planetary systems and star systems, when you have an entity that leaves their star system or leaves their planetary system, because that you can't believe that it's just human beings that exist in the whole universe. And if you believe that, then I can't have a conversation with you. You are delusional. You might as well just turn off this video and just move on to the next video. We're not the only living beings that exist in the entire universe. Get that clearly through your head. Even when they're talking about angels and demons in the Bible, those are also living entities, but they're not angels with wings and demons. All angels are the extraterrestrials that you guys scoff at. The idea that you guys laugh at the concept of aliens is funny to me because you guys are worshiping an alien. My kingdom is not of this world. So when you hear these things, the reason why I'm bringing up the religious aspect of it or coming from that lens is because many people who are religious, they tend to turn a blind eye to that. They think that if you believe in that you're believing in demons or you're believing in it's not about demons and angels. See, dogmatic language and religious rhetoric and religious language is so divisive, and it comes in a dualistic format where it causes people to be at a divide. Everything is black and white. God and the devil, angels and demons. And so they take those concepts and it influences, they think through those filters. So whenever you talk about something that's not aligned to their dogmatic, understandings of what they think the Bible is saying, they automatically dismiss you to be on the devil's side. You ever heard people say if you question the Bible or bring up anything that's contradictory in the Bible, people would just automatically say, oh, you're on the devil's side, the devil has blinded you, you don't have the Holy Spirit. They cast judgment upon you. Well, when people do that, it stops public discourse. It stops the ability to actually talk things out and come to an understanding. And maybe the people who are so dogmatic can actually start to open up their eyes to understand that, well, hey, hold on here. This word that I'm believing to be God's word has a lot of contradictions here. Maybe there's much more to this. Maybe there's much more to the human experience than what this Bible is telling me. But because they're so closed off, they push us off and say that we're closed off because we're not believing in what they believe. It's actually backwards. Religious people are more intolerant because if you don't believe what they believe, then you're of the devil. Satan has blinded you. You're not a child of God. You're chosen for hell. You're destined for hell because you're not the chosen one of God. Like they insert these dogmatic narratives into the discussion to pour a sense of guilt and shame upon you, and perhaps try to influence you or motivate you to move to their side by using fear as a mechanism to how to shift you toward their side. That's what they often try to do. But if you're strong in what you believe in, and if you're strong in what you know, because there's a difference between knowing and believing. I talked about that in a previous video before. If you're strong in what you know, then you're not necessarily going to be moved by people telling you you're going to go to hell because you don't believe in Jesus. I don't have to believe in shit. You believe in yourself, first of all. You believe in your own reality. You believe in your own reality, whatever reality that you've dispensed through your senses. Yeah, we can't see. Our five senses have been a trap for us in the sense that we're not as cerebral as we once were. Yes, our DNA has been manipulated. We get that. But that doesn't mean you start grasping at anything that's thrown at you and just believe in anything, because that's just you saying, I don't know, but I'm just going to just force myself to act like I know and use the word belief to paint myself with some sort of, I don't know, pseudo false piosity to make me seem like I'm holier than thou, because people like to throw around the word believe, and if you attach your name to the word believe, then it makes you somehow spiritual. No, it makes you somehow ignorant to the utmost. We're not talking about believing here, we're talking about knowing. So I find it very disheartening when you talk to religious people. They tend to turn a blind eye to the idea of the extraterrestrial influence on planet Earth. I mean, when you have certain things happening that you can't explain in terms of incorporating the laws of physics to try to come to an understanding about how certain phenomena emerge, you're going to just say it's a miracle. Well, what if these extraterrestrial beings are super highly advanced? And it's not even what if, they are, but I'm speaking rhetorically here. What if these extraterrestrials are so highly advanced they can do things that defy the laws of physics in our third dimensional realm? And so because we can't understand it, we can't use the metrics, we can't use measurements that we are privy to actually understand their technology, then we just chalk it up as a miracle. When you turn a stick into a snake or a snake back to a stick, when you're controlling weather, that's all technology, folks. That's all technology. We're doing it today. It's a small sample size of the grander weather controls that they had in the past, when an entire flood was orchestrated in the book of Genesis, and in other prehistoric books that talk about a major flood. That major flood was not a natural phenomenon. It was controlled by extraterrestrials because they have the power to do so with technology. If you want to part the Red Sea, they can part the waters. They have the tech to do that. If they're more advanced than us, and we have technologies here, if they're more advanced than us, then it's just common sense, just using some sort of deductive reason to come to the conclusion that maybe these people are just more advanced than us, and they're not really gods. Even the God of the Bible is not really a God. It's an extraterrestrial being. It's a family affair. Okay? So I don't want to go down that deep rabbit hole, but I wanted to talk about that because when I'm talking about scamming, I want you guys to look beyond the surface. It's not all about money. Money is just a symptom. It's just if you want to talk about in terms of significance, if you want to rank the significance of these things, it's an ancillary component. It's not really that important. The money is what we gravel onto, the peasants, the workers, those with the slave minds. That's us. We work every day, we pay bills, so money is our focus. The controllers, money is not their focus because money is not an issue for them. They create the money. Money is not a problem for them. Money doesn't even exist to them. Money is just their means of controlling humanity. And when I talk about industries, they're meant to kill you. Everything's meant to kill you. We are at war. Chemical warfare. Weather warfare with weather modification systems. If you don't believe me, listen to Dane Wigington. He talks about this every Saturday on his YouTube channel, how they're using weather to actually have warfare on humanity. Now, you may say, well, how is it war? They're not killing us. What do you mean they're not killing you? Have you ever heard of the devastating impacts of microplastic, nanoplastics? Do you know what those can do to your internal system? They're bioavailable, meaning that if it's bioavailable, it means that it's hard to get out of your system, because once it co-merges with your internal faculties in your system, it's hard to get out. Microplastics, nanoplastics, toxic metals, aluminum, barium, strontium. These are all the things that they spray in the skies. These are the airs that we're breathing in. Just the other day, I had my coworker telling me something to the effect of, oh, you got to be careful, COVID is coming back. Let me not curse, I'm sorry. How the F does COVID come back? It's almost as if there's something wrong with humanity, man. There's something desperately wrong with humanity. And I can't, it's hard to use words to describe the stupidity of humanity in general. I'm not saying all people. There's a small percentage of people that actually think, and I like to put myself in that category. It doesn't mean that those who think have all the answers. It means that those who think know when they're being bullshitted. Those who think know when they're being scammed. Those who think can see a scam and bullshit a mile away. That's what that means. See, we're not taught how to think, folks. We're just told what to think. There's a process of being a critical thinker. Like, if you don't know how to think, then you're just a person that's just an open grave to receive death content, death information. In other words, I'm going to just open my mouth, and whatever you feed me is what I'm just going to take, without the ability to have a tasting mechanism to make a distinction with your palate, to spit out the things that are disgusting and to accept the things that are actually nourishing to the mind. I'm using a metaphor there. So you can't solely rely on the hubs and the systems that are put here to give us information as the end all be all, and rely on those sources. At some point, you have to start to exercise the capacity of what your brain was actually put in your head for. Use it. We're at war. We've always been. We are the experiment. I've been saying this, but we don't think so. We think that we have purpose, value. We've been told those lies because it makes life more tolerable. But I can accept the truth and still live my life and know what it is. Because actually knowing is satisfying versus just believing. I'd rather know the truth that's painful and hurtful than believe a lie that feels good. Why? Because if I believe a lie that feels good, it means that every practice, everything that I do based upon that foundational construct of accepting that lie as truth, it means that everything that I do projecting from that stance is a lie. So my whole perspectives and my whole worldviews is faulty, and my practices are faulty. Therefore, even if I've made myself believe I have purpose, I have no purpose because there's no purpose in lies. Now, people say perspective is strong. People say that people's perceptions becomes their reality. Okay, that's true. But when you know better, you do better. So you can be ignorant, and ignorance can have its moments of bliss. But in an information age that we live in, there's no excuse to carry on with ignorance and live off that ignorance. It's sort of like the diet, right? We know more than we've known ever. We know that certain things that were told to us that were healthy are not healthy, that they're actually death agents. They're death mechanisms. All right, meant to make you sick. See, a human being that's sick and sickly is more profitable than a dead one. So these people, when I say they're meant to kill you, I'm not talking about killing you instantly. You're worth more to the system when you become a slave to the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry. You are a slave to the system when you have to go to the doctor ever so often to get your cholesterol pills, to get your heart medications. You are a slave to the system when you have to depend on a system. But you know why you're dependent on the system? Because the system was made to put things in front of you, to put inside your mouth, to make you dependent upon the system. It's a cyclical cycle, it's a vicious cyclical cycle. It's all interconnected. Don't think for 1 second that the food industry and the pharmaceutical industries are not connected at all. Don't think that at all. They're one and the same. All industries are one and the same. They just have different names. They all function to the detriment of humanity. And if everyone woke up and understood the truth, then those industries would be dead. Because people wouldn't need doctors. People wouldn't need any of that. People would demand that we go back to an agrarian society where we can actually use technology to produce things at a much faster rate, if that's the issue. But they produce things at a faster rate by inserting harmful chemicals in these products, and they don't have to. And people say, well, they put these harmful products in there because they want to preserve the food. Yeah, I get it. But in society, think about this. This is how deep I think, and it sounds like it's wishful thinking, and it sounds like it's all in theory, but it's not all in theory. If people ate healthier and ate more nutritionally dense foods, they would eat less, number one. If people exercised more, they would eat less, okay? So if you exercise more, you ate more nutritionally dense foods, meaning that your cells are getting the nutrients that it needs, so therefore the hormone, the hunger hormone and the satiation hormone in your brain, called ghrelin and leptin, they're going to be working in a state of equilibrium and balance, so that you're not going to overeat. Okay, people will eat less, and there wouldn't be this need to overproduce foods. Well, the overproduction of foods, the excuse is, well, there's a lot of people and they didn't get the food out to everybody. I think me and my wife were having a conversation about this the other day, and she mentioned it. She said something to the fact of the reason why they're mass producing foods is because they got to get all these foods out. But I told her, I said, but those things that they're getting out aren't foods. Those are processed foods. The processed foods, I want you guys to think deeply about this, because I want you guys to see the system for its wickedness and the evilness that it is. When the Bible says that the devil is a prince of the air, it's true. There's a lot of contradictions in the Bible because they've taken narratives from many ancient texts. They just put it into one book, like a huge collage of different phrases and different narratives. So sometimes people add their own interpretations to it to try to make it all succinct and all aligned to just one holy God, where it actually doesn't make sense. You have a slaughtering animal in the Old Testament that's just killing people willingly. Then in the Old Testament, all of a sudden he's hands off. That's not the same being. the book is not aligned at all. It took me a while to see that, because I was always trying to force myself to see the book as one cohesive book, but it's not. It's written by man. It's not written by God. Why does God need to even write a book? It's an alien that people think is a... Basically, we were made to worship, and whatever being wants us to worship, it's a family affair. So it's not it's not one being. It's us. It's a group of entities, extraterrestrials that had their hands in creating man, and their ambition was to have a creation that would worship them and view them as gods, plural, or if you want to say God singular. But we all know, if you do your research, everywhere you see God singular in the Bible, it's actually plural, but they curated the text over time to make it seem like as if it's one God. So even though people think they're worshiping one God, you're actually worshiping you're worshiping multiple extraterrestrial entities, which is gods, a plural. These are extraterrestrial beings that are just more advanced and just much more capable than we are in this third dimensional realm. And we just worship them because they can do things that we can't do. Just like if you see somebody hovering in the sky, you know, oh my God, he can fly. What about if the person's using technology that you can't see? Just simple things like that. Well, anyway, let me get back to the topic. Sorry, I digress. So I lost my point there. Yeah, so I want you guys to think a little bit deeper than what's going on, to see the system for the evil essence that it actually possesses. The foods that are produced are not produced because there's a lot of people eating them. So we need to produce it. We need to produce as much as we can. And in order for these things to last on the shelf, let's inject them with a bunch of carcinogenic preservatives to make them last. Now that part, you could say it's about the money, because if no one buys the product and the product gets rotten, they have to throw the product out. Same thing like with vegetables. Vegetables can't sit out. Produce can't sit out too long, because if it sits out too long, you have to discard it. So these processed foods that are all in boxes, that if you look at the ingredients on the side or on the back, you have a slew of ingredients that you cannot even pronounce. The ingredient list is voluminous. You're like, oh my goodness, what they need to put all this stuff in this food for? Well, number one, it's not even food that you're eating. It's processed food. That's why it's called processed food. It's not real food. It's processed. So they process these foods. Now, to the naked eye, on the surface, you'll think that, oh, they're just trying to make money to have these foods have a longer shelf life so they can make money. Partly true, partly false. It's not even about the money to the industries. It's about just letting the food sit there as long as it can for you to buy it and kill yourself with it. See, they're not in a business of making you healthy. They're in the business of making you sick. So both can be true in that regard. Yes, it's about the money. That's what they're going to get monetarily. I mean, monetary gain. They get the money from it because they're not losing out. You're not throwing away the things that they've produced, because it costs money to produce these processed foods. So they're not losing anything in that regard. However, if it can stay on the shelf long enough in the stores, it's there for you to see it and you're going to buy it. You buying the food and getting sick from the food is the objective. That's the short-term goal. That's also the long-term goal. Both. Money is not a factor. Now, we've allowed the money aspect to blind us to think that everything's about money, not understanding that there's a much more sinister motivation behind it. It's not all about money. It's all about your death and destruction and making you sick. When your Bible, especially other narratives, other ancient texts, say that the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, we live in hell already, because the system, by definition, produces things that kill your health, that steals your health, and that destroys your peace and destroys your health. You can't say that what I'm saying doesn't make sense. If you're disagreeing with me, it's just because you're stuck in Bible land, and you're upset that this guy talking to you doesn't believe what you believe, so you're gonna tune me out or think that I'm some kind of devil worshiper or whatever whatever they train or indoctrinate you guys to think about people. Don't dismiss everybody that doesn't believe what you believe. You'll be amazed how much you can learn from people that you don't agree with if you actually have the patience to actually sit and listen with intentionality and actually consider some things that are being said. Doesn't mean you have to believe or agree with me, but sit through it and marinate on it. Chew on it a little bit. Digest it. You may get something worthwhile from the information that I'm relaying to you right now. It's not about that. The devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. What do you think is happening in America right now? Everyone is sick. We had a conversation the other day about work. We were talking about the things that are within your locus of control, right? It was talking about how the wellness of a person affects their job, meaning that you got to take care of yourself, wellness. Don't be too stressed at work, because if you're too stressed, you won't be able to do your job to the best of your ability, yada, yada, yada. We were talking about all those concepts. So we had, the presenter had us write a couple of things on sticky notes. Like we had to write get a sticky note, and each concept that we came up with, we would write one concept on each sticky note. So the concepts that we were supposed to write about were things that that triggered us, or things that caused us stress. And I think one thing I put on mine was, I forgot how we even got to the subject. I think I put on, I put health. My word was health. So when the presenter was talking to us and giving us feedback on what we were writing, of course, it was a bunch of us in the room, and we were all supposed to either say that something is outside of our locus of control, something is inside of our locus of control, or we have influence over it. So there's like three components of it. And sometimes certain things kind of merged and had both. There are certain things that are within your locus of control, but also outside of your control. But it caused us to have a much deeper discussion than what we initially thought. So when I put the word health down on that sticky note, the presenter asked the audience. The presenter said, "Is health outside of your control?" I said, because I wrote it, but it was supposed to be anonymous, because I know why I wrote it. I said, no. I said, health is all in your control. And you should see the response from the crowd. They all looked at me like I was the devil himself. They were all like, no, health, you can't help that. People get sick, and sometimes it's not your fault. I was like, wow. And I said, I'm not talking about that kind. I said health overall. Like, you are in control of that. Like, when they heard the word health, they were thinking more like people who have comorbidities or who have like chronic illnesses. I wasn't talking about that. And even that in itself isn't within your control, because if you eat like shit all your life, then you're going to get sick. That's within your control. You're in control of what goes in and out your mouth. So this is what I said in response to their shocking response of being so appalled that I said that health is in your control. They felt, it seemed like they were taken aback by that, as if they were kind of disappointed that I thought that but they didn't know it was me who thought that. But they were disappointed that I said that it's within your control. I said, well, I told the presenter, I said, well, what you decide to put in your mouth is all on you. What you decide to smoke, drink, that's all on you. So if you drink alcohol, if you smoke cigarettes, if you take drugs, if you eat bad and you eat a bunch of fried foods and eat a bunch of high caloric foods that are empty calories, if you do all that stuff, and then you have bad health, how can you then say that your health or the status of your health was not in your control? It was definitely in control, every bit of it. Now, then the audience started to talk about other exceptions, and I said, well, there are always exceptions to the general rule. There's always exceptions to the rule, because you do have some people that are born ill, they can't control that aspect of it. But generally speaking, as a human being, we are directly in charge, in control of our health. And they didn't like that. And the reason why I'm saying that on this feed is because when you guys are thinking that the food industry is just about making money, it's not about, it's about killing you. It's about your health. I told you earlier, we are at war. You don't have to believe it. It's not war with guns and bombs. You guys keep talking about the war in Ukraine, and you're talking about Israel and Palestine, and those are just the popular wars that they want you to focus on. Right now, in America, we are at war. But there's something definitely wrong with us, that we've actually lost our capacity to think critically, and we've allowed the system to just do whatever they want to do with us without us questioning anything. So we believe that everything that's provided is for our own good. We consume the energy drinks, we consume the fast food stuff, and we do this daily. We live the way they want us to live. Therefore, we become slaves to the system that they've created for us. We are the lab rats. And the only rats that escape the experiment are the rats that are thinking outside the experiment. In other words, if you're thinking outside the box that they've given you to think within is a diabolical box that's put here intentionally to keep you strained within the elements of the systems that they've put in place to keep you enslaved to the system. So in other words, you may think that you have freedom, but if you're in a box, you're not really free, because the box is the ecosystem. Let's call the box the ecosystem. They've already put several mechanisms in that box to make it seem like you have options within the box, therefore giving you the false illusion that you have choice within the box. No, you don't have choice. They've manipulated your senses to make it seem like you have choice, where in actuality, whatever choice you choose still works out for their benefit and to your detriment. When I say they, I'm talking about the extraterrestrial. See, I'm not the guy that's gonna say they. I'm not the guy that's talking about Illuminati or all this other crap. I'm telling you who they are. I don't know who they are in terms of, there's a name to, or I could take a picture of the person and say this is the person. These are not terrestrial beings. These are not humans. These are, you know, when the Bible talks about principalities, and I have to keep referring back to the Bible because that's what most people in the Western world want to cling on to. So I have to use some of those terms to draw you guys back to my worldview. So when it talks about wicked spirits in high places and principalities, those spirits in wickedness in high places are nothing but extraterrestrial beings in higher dimensions. They're not spirits though, but we all have spirit. The spirit is what, your spirit is something that goes beyond the physical, okay? And it's all elements of what drives you internally. I gotta take this call, hold on. Okay, I just pulled up to work. I had to take a call, but I'm gonna continue this message and do a part 2 to it. So I can't continue it because I'm at work again. This industry, the slave system, so I can't really express myself the way I want to because I'm on somebody else's time. The reason why I have to go, because I need the money to pay my bills. All right, see you guys later, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.